1 o'clock on the dot. Thanks everyone for being here for another day of Chicago Live. I'm Anita Blanton, your host here in Studio 32, and I will be with you through 4 p.m. Lots to get to today, so let me just kind of line up this first hour that we have here together yesterday, and we're going to talk about a couple of things that happened at the Supreme Court both yesterday and today. I'll say that. But yesterday, the Supreme Court was debating the issue of whether trans students should be able to participate in women's sports. We spoke with a leader of the Center on Halstead, who counsels trans youth and was preparing for a big discussion on where things stand, of course, where they're going to be going from here on this particular issue last night. So today we're hearing the other side of that. Okay, I'm talking to an Idaho state representative who authored and sponsored the first of its kind legislation that she says, aims to protect opportunities for girls and women in sports, titled the Fairness for Women in Sports Act. So we always like to hear lots of different perspectives on things, especially now that this has gone to the Supreme Court. We probably won't get a decision on this particular matter until this summer. But since they're having this debate right now, we're bringing in both sides of this debate. Also, some look at the issues like that and say, you know what, the country has become so politically polarized. They're done identifying as Republicans or Democrats. A new Gallup poll, in fact, says a record high 45% of U.S. adults now identify as political independents, surpassing the 43% measured in 2014, 2023, and 2024. So what does it say? Gallup's director of U.S. social research is going to be joining me on the show today to discuss the trends that they're seeing, the possible whys behind it all, and what this could mean for the midterms this year and in the future. So some really important discussions about big things that are happening that affect things both here at home and also throughout the country. And speaking of that, like I said, talking about different things that are happening at the Supreme Court, there was a decision made today that directly comes out of Illinois. In fact, a Republican congressman was challenging this issue of ballots, mail-in ballots being counted days, weeks after the election. In fact, here in Illinois, you have 2 weeks. I mean, as long as it's postmarked by Election Day, you still have some time on the opposite side of that to make sure that your vote is counted. And so he was challenging that. Obviously, it made it all the way up to the Supreme Court. Initially, it was thrown out. So now it's mainly saying he can continue on with his legal challenge, not whether or not his challenge has merit, but that he can continue on at least with the challenge. I want to bring in our first guest right now so that we can talk about it. T. Russell Noble is a Judicial Watch senior attorney, a part of Judicial Watch's voting integrity efforts, and focuses on campaign and voting issues, civil rights issues, constitutional law, official misconduct by public constituents, and so much more. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
What was your reaction to the ruling today?
We were very pleased, frankly, not very surprised. For most of 200 years or 250 years, federal courts have always heard challenges brought by federal candidates over rules governing their federal elections. Suddenly in 2020, it became a new issue where people doubted whether or not federal candidates could bring cases in court to challenge electoral practices, and sort of been a non-event until 2020, 2019. And so this this ruling today basically just returns us back to the way the world was in 2019. So very pleased, but not surprised.
Mm-hmm. And really, you know, Representative Bost is who we're speaking of here. It says that this all points to election integrity. Is that how you see it as well?
Yes, it deals with election integrity, and then also just honestly election legitimacy, right? Having so the law in question here, as you mentioned in the opening, is that ballots can continue to arrive 14 days after Election Day and be included in the count. And the problem with that is now there's so many ballots arriving after Election Day that is really starting to undermine the confidence in the election, because I mean, you go to bed at night, there's 150,000 votes, and you wake up in the morning and suddenly there's 250,000 votes. And then 3 days later, it's 350,000 votes. And so it's really corrosive to to the democratic process to keep adding to the denominator of votes out there. So, I mean, obviously it's an election integrity issue, but it's also an election legitimacy issue. And, in track and field, you have a 100-meter dash. In baseball, you have 9 innings. In football, you have 4 quarters. And in elections, you have election day. And that's the deadline. And that's our view. And we're looking forward to having federal courts answer the question why ballots can be received after Election Day, because frankly, this is sort of a new practice. It has been experimented with over time, almost always abandoned. But in the last 15 years, there's been some long national, frankly, nightmare to extend Election Day days and weeks past Election Day. So we're looking forward to getting the courts to give the good people of Illinois an answer as to why we need to conduct elections this way, because frankly, for 250 years, there was very little problem having ballots due by Election Day.
Yeah, and there were a few things that the Representative Bose pointed out here in his argument. One is that obviously this is what we do in Illinois is different from the federal law.
Yeah, so just to sort of back up, the federal government established a national election day in 1845, and then Illinois, for most of its history, mandated ballots be due by Election Day. And then I think maybe 2005, 2013, there's 2 statutes in play. I can't remember which one occurred first. I think it's 2005. Illinois switched it to start allowing post-election receipt. And that law is our contention, and we won actually in another court elsewhere, conflicts with the federal election day because federal election day statutes, because a ballot is not completed until received by the federal officials, or excuse me, the election officials. So if you mark a ballot in your home and it sits on your desk, on your counter in your kitchen, it's not a cast ballot. It can be lost in the mail. It can be changed in some states. And frankly, under the postal regulations, you can call back your letter. So if you mail something and you wanted to vote for President Trump and then he does something in the intervening time and he makes you mad, under the postal regs, you can literally recall that. Now, does that happen frequently enough to change the outcome of elections? Possibly not. But the thing is, a ballot is not completed until received by election officials. And so our view is that conflicts, the Illinois law conflicts with the longstanding Election Day statutes.
So Justice Brown Jackson and also Justice Sotomayor said that this opinion could destabilize the elections process by inspiring more litigation. What are your thoughts on that?
We respectfully disagree. I haven't gone through their 20-page dissent. Now, bear in mind, this was a pre-election suit. There are different issues that arise in post-election suits. I think that issue has been conflated. And so, when you bring a challenge to electoral practice that before Election Day, it's a different sort of standard. It's always been the case. And as I mentioned, there are cases from 1865, from the early 20th century, where federal candidates challenged electoral practices, and it was completely uneventful that they were allowed to hear their case, or that federal courts were allowed to hear their case. And so this is nothing new. There are no floodgates. There's no destabilizing. There will probably be some frivolous lawsuits, but courts are perfectly equipped with throwing those out. There have always been frivolous lawsuits as well. So this basically just returns us to 2019. And so, no, I just had to say respectfully disagree with that.
Yeah, even Justice Coney Barrett and Elena Kagan also kind of pointed to the fact they thought maybe it was too broad in scope, but they ultimately agreed with the overall premise here.
Correct. Yeah. So we won 7-2. Now, two of those people two of the 7 sort of disagreed on maybe how broad or how narrow it should be. I think that's the sort of disagreement is more in theory and not really practice. You'll have a lot of overlap between those two, the competing views between the 5 and the 2. But Justice Kagan agreed with us. It was clear she agreed with us at oral argument. It's really not eventful, right? If you spend money to run as a candidate, you have the ability to raise legitimate claims about electoral practices, and so it should be. There's not really that much daylight between the 2 and the 5. The 2 being Justice Barrett and Justice Kagan.
Yeah, and speaking of candidates spending money, one of the things that I was just kind of reading up that Representative Bost said was, at the very least, the extended period of time where ballots are being counted means he has to continue to pay for, even if you should lose, you would or think you might be losing as these votes are being counted. You kind of have to continue to pay for your staff just in case.
Yeah, it'd be malpractice to close up shop the night of election. You still got 2 weeks of ballots coming in, right? And so, you can't sue over everything in federal court simply because you don't like something, right? You can't go sue because you hate how high your taxes are. You have to have something unique to you. And the Supreme Court today made clear that candidates are in a unique position because they're regulated in the competition for elections, and it just simply costs money. It's not complicated, right? In federal law, if something costs you a couple extra bucks, you typically get into court. And so, obviously with a sophisticated congressional campaign, Congressman Bost is spending lots of money. He's relying on a lot of volunteer efforts. He has to pay advisors to continue to monitor things. His district covers 34 counties. 34 counties. So he has to have a set of people to go visit and monitor the activity going on in 34 counties. Now, I haven't done the full survey on this, but I'd be hard-pressed to find any congressional district with more than 34 counties. And so he is uniquely burdened. He's been a great advocate, and he's been a great client to work with. And, we're really looking forward to the opportunity to frankly, to make to help the American public get back to some normalcy and bring the election day to a conclusion on election day.
And if people weren't following along with this entire story, just take us quickly back to the beginning and how we ended up here at the Supreme Court.
Sure. So federal electors in Illinois, we first brought suit in 2022 in federal court. Chicago area. And so we appealed this, and we went to the Seventh Circuit, which is the intermediate federal appellate court. They too disagreed with us, but there was a split amongst the judges as to whether or not we should. One judge at least said they thought we should have our case heard in federal court. And so we asked the Supreme Court to consider the case. They granted cert, which means they agreed to hear the case in the summer, and it was one of the first cases that heard this fall. And one of the first cases it ruled on. We were actually thinking it might come out today because really it's not a controversial issue. People report it as a controversial issue. It is not.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll end the discussion there. Appreciate your time here today.
For having me.
All right. It is 1:13, everyone. Really important to have these discussions. There is so much, as he did say in the end, there's a lot of discussion about what's happening at the Supreme Court and a lot of heated debate about the things that have gotten to that level. But these are very unique cases. The one thing that I would say on that is that a unique case may be what rises to that level, but it does have larger scope as to what happens after that point in time throughout the country. So we'll see what happens and moving forward. Again, the ruling today just means he can continue forward with his argument in court, not to say whether he will win or lose. So there's more to come on that. There's more to come here on Chicago Live as well. So we hope that you'll continue to stay with us here. We are going to take a quick break. We're waiting on a live event to happen. President Trump is expected to be signing some executive orders today. There are several meetings that are happening there at the White House today as well. So not sure as to what time that might happen. They just said it's likely to happen in this 1 o'clock hour. We know there are diplomats from Greenland who are at the White House today, supposed to be meeting with Vice President J.D. Vance and others. And so there's a lot going on at the White House. But at some point in time, we hope to be able to take you to a live signing there. And just as soon as it happens, we'll go. But we're going to take a quick break, 2 minutes, and we'll be right back. All right, everybody, it's 1:20 right now, and we're taking a look at a few different things that are happening both here at home and in Washington, D.C. I mentioned before we went to break that we were waiting on the president to start his signing ceremony. We at least in the break learned what that signing ceremony will be about. We've learned that President Trump is set to sign a bipartisan legislation today to allow the nation's schools to offer whole milk and 2% milk. And this is reversing Obama-era restrictions that limited options for students to fat-free or low-fat milk here. So again, that is a bipartisan effort now making it to the president's desk, and he is expected to sign that today. Other news there at the White House, of course, that I mentioned before we went to break is the fact that Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio have met now, are meeting today with top diplomats from Denmark and Greenland. This is huge as the discussion about what happens with Greenland moving forward continues to build. More tension, really, where that is concerned here. President Trump saying that threats to acquire the island, possibly even by military force. He said in a social media post just hours ago there that the U.S. needs to have control of Greenland. So, in fact, in that post, he said the United States needs Greenland for the purpose of national security. It is vital for the Golden Dome that we are building. NATO should be leading the way for us to get it. But of course, there have been leading NATO leaders who have kind of disputed that side of things, saying that it would actually destabilize NATO, or really do away with NATO altogether if the U.S. were to take control of Greenland. So more to come in terms of that discussion there. Let's bring you back here to home. We have some weather pictures to give you. It's been quite an interesting day in terms of the weather that we have been seeing in our area. Look at the folks out there taking pictures at the Bean. Hopefully they are all bundled up. The temperatures today have not bottomed out the way they will by the weekend when the Bears are facing the Rams. But certainly today you see that fresh coat of snow sitting on the Bean. We've really been through it today. First thing this morning, things seemed okay. And then all of a sudden, look at the view from our 2800 cam. This is a new view that we have just over the last few weeks that we've acquired here. And you're able to see all of that new snow over the city. It really started to come down in our area here. In fact, this morning, about I would say about 7:15 this morning. There were even ground stoppages out at O'Hare because of the snow that started to come down pretty hard at times. I was looking over our list of trending topics that came in, and several of them had to deal with the snow today. One was Chicago road conditions. Another was what is a snow squall? Another, how much snow today, Chicago? Here's another one, Chicago blizzard. So people were definitely looking up all things weather here, trying to figure out what in the world was going on. And I spoke with our meteorologist, Mike Kaplan, this morning about it, and he was saying that that system really was an overperformer, if you will. And in terms of how much snow it just started to really put down on our area. And again, we're not through with it. I mean, this is beautiful once it comes down. For sure, there were some issues this morning in terms of road conditions and whatnot, but we're not through with the snow, and obviously these temperatures are not even going to hold. Right now, let's look and see what we're sitting at the moment. 23 degrees, feels like -3 degrees, but our high for today was 41 degrees. By this weekend, as we're ushering in the LA Rams from their very warm, comfortable temperatures, we're going to be sitting at 18 degrees as a high. So there's plenty more conversation to be had in terms of where we're going, in terms of the weather, and what in the world happened today. You can see that camera kind of shaking around today. Lots of us just walking outside and thinking, wait, what is happening? And the roads, definitely the roads had issues. The skies, I mentioned what was happening at O'Hare. So all around, we were seeing that people were having some issues. In fact, let's look at the waves on North Avenue Beach. Speaking of the wind that's happening out there, we have a view from North Avenue Beach, and you can see the waves rippling in some of our pictures here. I mean, that's due to that high wind out there. So O'Hare had to take some precautions this morning. We hope that many of you will continue to take precautions out on the roads as things get even more slick. And we'll be bringing in one of our meteorologists a little bit later on in the show so that we can talk about exactly, the particulars. I can give you the overall on what's happening out there, but they'll give you the particulars as to what we can all expect, as we can see so many people here on our website asking questions about what's going on with the weather. We want to be able to give you some answers. So it's 1:26 right now, taking a few more looks at people getting out and about in the city. When we looked at this picture earlier today, there was only like one man standing out at the bean. And I think Caitlin was saying he got an epic picture, being out there all by himself out at the bean in the snow. It was a pretty epic picture that he was able to get. A few more people venturing out here now to get their pictures at the bean that they'll be able to take home to their families. It is usually a tourist kind of activity here. And people come regardless of the weather, to kind of get that picture that they can take back home wherever they have come here from. Beautiful to see that you're able to do that. There's a little gleam of sunshine off of it right now. Definitely didn't have that this morning. In fact, it's kind of turned into a beautiful day, but this morning was a mess. So we'll talk more about it with one of our meteorologists a little bit later on in the show. We're going to take a quick break, about 2 minutes, and we'll be back. In our next segment here, we're going to be talking with Gallup's director of U.S. social research. We are in a year of midterm elections, and they're pretty consequential, whether people will stick with the party that is in power right now, or whether there will be some type of wave to try to change that, or whether we see kind of a mix of things. But right now, what we're seeing from this latest Gallup poll is that more and more people are saying they don't identify completely with Democrats or completely with Republicans, but they see themselves kind of sort of somewhere in between, that they are a record high at this point in time. 45% of U.S. adults now identifying as political independents in their latest poll. We're going to talk more about what that means for this year and what it can mean moving forward. Could a viable independent candidate actually make it all the way? We shall see, and we'll talk more about it on the other side of this break. Give us about 2 minutes, and we'll be right back. 1:31, and as mentioned, we have now Gallup's Director of U.S. Social Research who is joining me as we see more and more people who really aren't identifying fully to the left or fully to the right, but in the middle as independents. Lydia Saad, thank you so much for your time today. I think you're on mute right now. Let's get you off of mute so we can have this discussion. I've really been looking forward to it since I saw you all's numbers here. A record high 45% of U.S. adults now identifying as political independents. Talk about how the contrast of, like, say, 5 and 20 years ago.
Yeah, this represents a long-term climb in the percentage of independents in the United States. So we're, like you said, we're at 45%. Today, we were at 43% last year. You go back 10 years, we were at maybe 42%, so incremental change recently, but you go back to 2010, and it was 38%, down to a low of 31% in 2004. So long term, from the low to now, we're looking at about a 50% increase in independence. And as independents have gone up, Republicans and Democrats have gone down.
We're seeing these numbers, and yet it does feel like we live in such a hyper polarized environment. How do we mesh that?
Because when we ask independents which way they lean, which is kind of what most voters have to do when they go in a vote in both in America, where there's usually two major party candidates to choose from, they have a clear leaning. And we know from their behavior that they tend to follow those leanings and how they vote. So although many people now choose to identify as independent, they have no difficulty telling us which way they lean. And that's been very narrow in recent years.
Mm-hmm. And maybe they don't fully see an independent candidate. If I want my vote to count, are they feeling like the independent candidate is going to make it?
Yeah, polling has shown that the two factors do suppress people's willingness to vote for independents. One is that I'm wasting my vote. This person's not going to win. So therefore, I might as well choose between the two realistic options. And then the other one is I could blunder in voting for an independent and allow my least favorite candidate to win. So between those two things, it's a what we'd call like a systemic public opinion barrier to voting third party.
Mm-hmm. Do we see, though, politicians look at polls, do you think that in seeing more and more people identify as independents, that we'll see one of two things? One, that maybe more politicians like Marjorie Taylor Greene, somebody like that who's kind of defected from the leadership of a party, then say, no, I could be that viable independent candidate.
It's a tricky thing, but you're certainly right that there is a path. There is an opportunity for someone who wants to appeal to independents. What's interesting is that as independents have risen in identification, not only has identification as Republicans and Democrats gone down, but the favorable ratings of those two parties have gone down. So they're broadly unpopular. And so that does create an opening for somebody to come in and say, I'm an alternative. The problem is that we still have large blocks of voter, even though these are the national numbers, you still have most Republicans who identify as Republicans or even lean Republican say they like the Republican Party, and the same for the Democrats. So there's only there's a much smaller group of people who don't like either party. Most people can pick one or the other that they like, but a smaller percentage who don't like either party. And right now, that tends to lean more to the Democrats than the Republicans, because the Democrats are a bit frustrated with their party since losing the 24 election and, failing to make, gains in the House or dealing with Trump's policies. So Republicans are pretty happy with the Republicans. They don't look like the party that's going to be open to a third party candidate as much as Democrats right now.
And I guess the other part of maybe how I would think, there would be an impact. I just wonder if we'll see more political speech directly to independents now, now that we're seeing these numbers shift?
Yeah, I think it would be logical. People, we conduct polls to be the voice of America so that our leaders understand how the public feels, and we do see them reacting in kind, responding to these kinds of trends.
Yeah. Talk about the methodology, like how you all come up with these numbers, how we come to this point.
Sure. Well, Gallup uses a range of methods these days to do polls, all of which have validity, from online polling and AI polling and all sorts of things. These Gallup trends, which we've been tracking since literally the 1930s, many of them, and our party ID trend for decades, rely on consistency in methodology to get results that we know we can compare over time. So these results are conducted by telephone. Mostly cell phone these days, as you can imagine, but still a little bit of landline. And so we're able to get random list, a list of a random selection of household phone numbers or cell phone numbers from across the country, dial those with live interviewers, do a random selection within a household, and wind up with what we call a probability-based sample. So truly a scientifically chosen sample to be representative of Americans to ask these questions. And then we tabulate the results.
What do we see demographically in what you found?
Oh, goodness. So in terms of this polling, so the big takeaway, and I want to credit my colleague Jeff Jones, who wrote this article and has been doing a lot of this research over the years, is that we're largely looking at a generational shift in partisanship. Folks from the silent generation, the World War II generation and baby boomers, grew up with households being very tied to party, and they still are, but it's the younger generations that have come along that were more inclined to consider themselves independent, less likely to just be the same party that their parents were, and more likely to not want to identify, to have party ID be such a core part of their identity. So this is very much, we see majorities of young adults now identifying as independent compared to still, about half that percentage of older adults.
Were you surprised by anything in the findings?
No, because this, we've been tracking this, and we know because of the generational change that this is just going to continue year after year. So, at this point, this is a very important trend, but not a surprising trend. And I guess the only question is sort of, does it level off? Does it, or does it keep going? And it's hard to imagine it going much higher when you've got Republicans and Democrats down to about a quarter of the sample, but maybe that will surprise me if those go below 25%.
Yeah. And in what you found here, were there, obviously the big takeaway is that there are more people identifying as independents, but were there some other trends that maybe we're kind of missing because of the big headline?
Sure. Well, another thing that we ask people in every one of our polls, and we ask party ID in every poll, is whether you consider yourself conservative, moderate, or liberal politically. So that's something we've been tracking over time. And at the same time, we've shown increasing percentage of independents. We have more Americans identifying as moderate over time. They're still the smallest of the three groups. Right now, it's 28%. And then, it's not the smallest. It's the sort of the middle group at 33%. The smallest group is still liberals at 28%, but that has been climbing. At the same time, the percentage conservative has been very steady at about 35%. So conservatives have always outnumbered liberals, but the liberal percentage has increased over time. Again, largely because of young people more likely to identify as liberal. And I misspoke earlier. It's really the moderate that's come down a little bit. The liberals have gone up, and conservatives are about the same. Now, that's nationally, but what that's masking is that's also very, that pattern applies to independents. Conservatives have long been mostly self-identified conservatives at the rate of 60 to 75%. Democrats have become much more liberal over the past quarter century, from about 20% identifying as liberal to almost 60% today. And that's across the party. That's among all age groups of the party, men and women, white and non-white. Democrats as a whole are moving more to the left politically, whether they call themselves progressive or liberal, and but still not as monolithic a party as conservatives that are like 3/4 conservative.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if some people who are taking the poll, kind of question, well, they may feel like fiscal conservatives, but
socially liberal.
Yeah. Kind of
we do ask that once a year in May. We ask people exactly that on the economic issues to consider yourself liberal, moderate, conservative, and the same on social issues. And typically we get more Americans identifying as liberal on social than economic issues, but not as big a difference as you might think. That's something we look at every year. It's interesting to see how many people are consistent in the two categories or differ. It's keep an eye out for that one in May or June.
We will definitely be keeping an eye out for that. I wonder, aside from seeing more independence over the course of time, are there some other trends that you think will continue to head in the same directions that they are?
Oh, just on anything that we track?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think one of the most profound changes that we've seen in our polling and my tenure as a pollster since the 90s has been increased acceptance of gay marriage. That went from something that was largely taboo to something that's now largely approved of, but there's still more room for that to grow, and it certainly will as we have generational change, because young people are still more supportive of gay rights than older Americans, although solid percentages now in all age groups are, but it's just more overwhelming support among young folks. So we're going to keep seeing that trend increase. We used to think that the support for marijuana legalizing would continue to grow. That seems to kind of have leveled off I think around the 60% range. We'll see if that kind of picks up again, or maybe because of concerns now about marijuana after being legalized, it could go the other way. So that's one to watch. We ask hundreds and thousands of questions at Gallup, so it's hard to pick just a few. But because we maintain these telephone trends, we're very pleased that we're able to continue to be a reflection of the American people, and we put the data out and love people to look at it and analyze it.
Are you all using any AI or anything like that now?
We don't on these polls, but there certainly is a lot of work being done in how AI can be used to assist both interviewing and analysis. AI can be used now to code responses on data that comes in. In the U.S., there are very strict rules on the use of AI in phone calling. So you have to follow the law and tread carefully there. But there's a lot of work being done experimenting with that. So it's. I'm sure that will be talk to us in another year, and we'll probably be well on our way.
Yeah, a trend that I could see going into your arena as well. And then, how do you all pick the topics that you conduct your polls on?
Sure. So we have, again, a legacy of almost a century now, but we've been here for 90 years of topics that we've polled on. About 25 years ago, at the start of the millennium, we decided to pull out what we identified as our best trends and sort them across 12 surveys that we'd repeat every year to make sure those items got updated every year within a framework of other questions that make them more interesting to analyze. So every January we do the State of the Nation, American satisfaction with all aspects of the country, socially, politically, economically. So that's in the field now, and we usually kind of put that out around the quote unquote State of the Nation time of year. February, we pull on Americans' views on foreign policy and defense, and we have a lot of trends on that. In March, we focus on the environment and energy policy. In April, we focus on economic issues and people's personal finances. A lot of questions about their preparation for retirement and ability to maintain their pay their household bills and all sorts of things on that. And then in May, that's a popular one, that is our values and beliefs poll. So we update a lot of religiosity items, and also people's whether people think various things are morally acceptable or wrong, everything from the death penalty and abortion and premarital sex and all kinds of things, that face society or moral questions. We get the public's take on those things. Want me to keep going? Like every month we have a different topic that we cover. People's, smoking and drinking, and some months, and then we get into attitudes about crime, fear of crime, what people are doing to protect themselves against crime, healthcare policy, the workplace, education, and then all sorts of lifestyle things. So every month is something different. We update our old trends. It's like, old friends are silver and new ones are gold, or whatever that is. So we love our old trends, but we also like supplementing them with new questions to get at new angles on those issues. So it's we have a team that we look at kind of what we've done before, and then what could we possibly add to this, and it's always more than you can ask. So we as a group kind of cull it down and get those things into the field, as we say, every month, and then it's off to the races when the data comes out to analyze it, as we did in this poll, and get it all out to you folks.
And we're always, mystified by the things that you all find. And again, how many different topics that you all cover. Do you get into any kind of weird topics? For Chicago, we would love you to do one on how many people secretly, use ketchup on their hot dogs or something.
Oh, well, one of my favorite, but maybe it's not so weird, is UFOs. We've asked about that since the 50s occasionally, and we did it a couple of years ago. So getting into whether people think they're phantoms of people's imagination, they're something, they're real but they're not alien life, or that they are alien life, and whether that alien life would be friendly or not friendly. So we have done that. There's the thing, the things we're focusing now, we're really trying to focus on things that speak to this extraordinary change that the world is going through in all different spheres, whether it's geopolitics or U.S. politics or the economy, AI, how technology is affecting people's lives. So there's so many important things to ask about. That we've kind of moved away from, ketchup or mustard.
It's an important topic in Chicago. It is an important topic.
I understand, yeah. So, we still do like to have fun. We just did a poll actually where we decided to update some trends we hadn't in a while, just kind of pop in and say updating. How many books are Americans reading? How many movies did they go to last year? How many friends do they spend time with on a weekly basis? Some things like that are, how many airline trips did you take? So some of those kind of lifestyle things, I think they're fun.
Yeah. And then maybe just on a final note here, you went over, some things that are very time specific, or that you all do at a specific month each year.
Yes.
For a poll like what you just released here, the one that was about more independence, I mean, what is the timing? What is the thought behind the timing in releasing that? I mean, we are in a year of midterms. Does it have to do with that? Mm-hmm. Is it coinciding with that for a reason? Or, I mean, how do we arrive at the timing of releasing this?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I'm really glad you asked it. So we have all those topics that we kind of spread out throughout the year and update them annually, or sometimes even less often. But certain questions we ask every single poll, every month. So party ID and ideology, they're part of our demographics that are on every poll. But then also every month we measure presidential approval, Congress approval, this question, the kind of the right track, wrong track question about the direction of the country. We ask an open-ended question, whether what you think is the most important problem facing the country. And then we do like a consumer confidence set of questions to get at how people are feeling about the economy. So those are asked every month, and we do see fluctuations from month to month, but we also get a lot of benefit out of pooling all that data on an annual basis, particularly for party ID and ideology, but sometimes some of the other things, where then you have, 12 times the sample size, and instead of just reporting the overall number, now you can look at the subgroups, very robust, large sample sizes to get accurate reads on changes by age and gender and those kind of things. So we tend to do that at the end of the year, because party ID doesn't change that much from poll to poll, and some things can kind of bounce around, but we want to see on a yearly basis, how has that changed? So that's an annual.
Okay, very interesting stuff here, both in just what you do on a regular basis and, of course, with this latest poll that Gallup has put out. Thank you so much for your time, your expertise, and your conversation.
We appreciate it, too. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Everyone, it's 1:52 right now. And right now we also have in Washington, we were talking about politics here and how people see things. Well, there is a Senate hearing that's happening at the moment. There's a panel that's looking at the investigation into those pipe bombs that were left near the Democratic and Republican National Committee headquarters the day before the January 6th riots that took place there. And there have been several people who have been speaking to this panel today. Of course, late last year, it was a Virginia man who was arrested for placing those pipe bombs at both of the headquarters here nearly 5 years ago. And let's listen into a bit of what's happening right now.
For extremist activity without any criminal predicate. I have never even been questioned, much less charged. All across the country, many citizens faced raids and arrests for protected activities for deterrence purposes. I have FOIA'd the DOJ and the FBI for the 89 documents in my eGuardian file, but they have ignored my FOIAs. The purpose of this hearing regarding the pipe bomb and my core assessment regarding the FBI's failures regarding January 6th is because the FBI was singularly focused after January 6th to prevent Donald J. Trump from becoming the president again, and to cripple, intimidate, and silence his allies and supporters. They never truly pursued the pipe bomber because they were focusing on covering up lies, criminal misconduct, and election interference. And they were hunting Trump supporters. In early 2022, I was a voluntary witness to the January 6th Investigative Committee, where I offered them classified documents, or classified briefing, which they refused. And I provided multiple documents which they destroyed, including my report. Regarding what happened on January 6th, a protective order has been placed on the body cam footage of many of the officers on the Capitol that day. This must be lifted. The DOJ has marked these as highly restricted. That's not a national security classification. Also, we need to look into the FinCEN violations. There are people at the DOJ that I can direct you to that can speak specifically to these abuses. I go into great detail about these classification abuses in my report, as a matter of fact. It is against government regulation, quote, to classify or otherwise conceal information that is a violation of the law or to prevent embarrassment to a person, organization, or agency. The FBI has been abusing this for decades. The president issued an executive order. Reports have been made to the president. Referrals have been made to DOJ. The result of all of this weaponization has been catastrophic to the public trust in our government, but specifically the FBI. Without accountability and significant
all right, we've been
reforms,
listening
many
into
Americans
just
will
a
lose
bit of that.
complete
Again,
faith
this is a
in us.
Republican-led committee, a new Republican-led committee here to investigate the events at the Capitol on January 6th. And again, this is coming after a man now has been arrested for placing the pipe bombs there at the Democratic and Republican headquarters in Washington, D.C., nearly 5 years at the time when he was arrested after the Capitol riots. So that's going to continue on. I did mention a short while ago just how crazy the weather has been here, though, and look at that as we give you a live picture over the waves at the North Avenue beach. And you can see, I mean, today we've just had that wind, we had the snow. In fact, we had a snow squall in our area. There was the stoppage, the ground stoppage at O'Hare. And of course, I'm just talking about things that happened, in Chicago proper. But we've also been talking, and we sent our own Brett Bugansky down to Indiana to see how things were looking there. There was the possibility of lake effect snow for our friends in Northwest Indiana too. So Brett, how are things there?
As soon as we started driving into Northwest Indiana, you could feel how slick it was on the road, on the interstate. And then when we arrived in downtown Gary, Indiana, you could kind of feel as if there was a sheet of ice underneath the snow, and what looked like the snow outside of this bank in downtown Gary, Indiana, it looked like snow that really wasn't packing snow. But in the last hour of our time being here, it got to a point where now it's starting to get really slick, and some of the plows are now starting to hit some of the streets, because when Stefan and I arrived, it looked as if some of the streets had not been plowed here. The big factor right now is how windy it is right now. I'm just looking at the bus station, and it's kind of where the convention center is located here in Gary. You just see the flag posts moving, the flags moving. I mean, it looks like the wind is gusting at almost 30 miles an hour right now. And as soon as it's that kind of wind where you get out of your car and you're sitting there, you're getting ready to go out, you're like, okay, I'm ready for this. I'm going to open the
Brace
door.
yourself.
And then you're hit with a big gust of wind, and almost like the door is going to hit you right in the face as you're trying to get outside your car. And as I'm talking to my right now, I'm seeing some plows going on some of the main drags here. We've seen some pickup trucks in some of the parking lot areas here. But speaking to Gary, Indiana police officer, we met a Gary bus driver who is in the public mass transit system here in town. They are noticing a big difference on the road. The bus driver, Darius, was telling me that he's having to go about maybe 5-10 miles an hour. Hopefully he could drive a little bit faster than that, since they're able to hit the roads. But as I'm just looking around, you see how windy it is. We're seeing people as they're getting on the bus. It kind of looks like the struggle as they're pushing themselves back. It looks like the wind's hitting their face here. It's just one of those things where the wind is really going to make an impact on your day, and that's certainly the case here in Gary, Indiana.
Yeah. Umbrellas actually not advised in this type of setting here. I saw some folks with umbrellas earlier today. I was like, no, you are going to really be in the fight of your life with this wind out here.
I think you could the best thing you could do is just put your hood on, bundle up, head down. You just kind of go into it like it's you're at the goal line. It's 4th and 1, and just kind of lunge forward, and we're all going to get through this. After all, Roseanne Tejas was talking to some people earlier today on Good Day Chicago, speaking to some people here in Gary, Indiana. They all agree this is a preview of what we could possibly be seeing on Sunday when we got Bears and Rams. It's the Smiths versus the Grabowskis.
Yeah, and of course, when we think about LA coming here from the conditions that they're used to, I mean, it could play in our favor here. Now, look, we didn't send Brett to Northwest Indiana this morning to cover the weather, to cue up the controversy that is. But since you're there, have you talked to anybody about, their thoughts on these pictures circulating of, the Bears leadership and NFL leadership being in Indiana, kind of scoping some things out?
I think it's very promising. And the fact that you have the state of the state address tonight from Indiana Governor Mike Braun, it'll be very interesting what he has to say about whether they're going to roll out the red carpet for the Bears. But it's quite fitting, because there's just we've covered a lot of areas here in Gary, Indiana, where some really do want the Chicago Bears here, and knowing that it's quote unquote Bears weather and we're here right now, and it just feels a lot different than what it is in the Loop right now. It almost feels like the timing is everything. But knowing that they were looking at sites in Northwest Indiana, but they were also looking at Arlington Heights at the former Arlington Park racetrack. it's going to be very interesting how this ends up playing out. But knowing that the Bears are this hot team right now, and they're one victory away from going to the NFC title game, something that the Bears have not been to since the 2010-2011 season. This is something that people can all agree is very, very special.
You can't shop a losing team, but yes, as you said, we are the hot team right now. Brett, thank you so much. You be safe as you all are kind of maneuvering around there. Appreciate your time.
Hey, it's my pleasure, and we're bearing down in this bear-like weather.
That's what it is. Thank you so much. And of course, since he is in Northwest Indiana, he mentioned some other players in the game. There's the obvious, there's a group of people who obviously want the stadium right here, right down the street from us right now, Soldier Field, to continue to be the home of the Bears, to keep it in Chicago. There are folks down in Northwest Indiana who say, hey, we're Chicagoland too. We should have a say in this. But before Northwest Indiana ever came into the picture, Arlington Heights was looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and bring in Heather Larson, the president and CEO of Meet Chicago Northwest, to talk a little bit more about where Arlington Heights is in all of this as of now. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be able to talk on this topic. And as the song says, they are the pride and joy of Illinois. So we endeavor to keep them in Illinois, and that's why we're here with you today.
And for those who don't know, Meet Chicago Northwest is a tourism bureau for 8 Chicago Northwest suburbs, including Arlington Heights. So tell me you all stake in this game.
Well, correct. We are the Tourism Bureau, regional tourism bureau, representing Arlington Heights and 7 surrounding communities. We work closely with the hoteliers, the restaurants, and the attractions in the area. And this area has long been a visitor economy. We have 60 plus hotels, over 9,000 sleeping rooms, and hundreds of restaurants, including a beautiful downtown Arlington Heights, which has a high concentration of independent restaurants, boutique retailers, Metropolis Performing Arts Center. So there's a lot going on in Arlington Heights, and then of course in Schaumburg and the surrounding communities. So we are ready to welcome the Bears and their customers, their visitors, to the area, and not just the Bears, all the other events that could potentially be in this new stadium.
Yeah, of course, once you have a dome stadium, it does, bring about a wealth of other opportunities, whether it's a Final Four or something of that sort, concerts and other things that you can have inside a Super Bowl that you can have once you have a dome. You can't have it there at Soldier Field right now.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's really just a warm weather venue, and they have had some fantastic record-breaking concerts of late. Taylor Swift, Beyonce brings in a ton of revenue for the hotels and for the attractions, folks coming into town. But having a roof on it definitely helps us with these Chicago winters like today, where, it's business as usual. So, we're an organization that brings visitors to our community and brings events to our community. So the size and scale of these events are something that we don't have the facility anywhere in Cook County or really in Illinois that can accommodate the Final Fours, the Super Bowl, Big Ten championships, and all the rest of it. So these are events that we cannot accommodate right now in business that we are already losing out to Indiana because they're going down to Indianapolis and Lucas Oil. And so we want to bring those kind of events and that revenue here.
Yeah, not all games are against the Rams where the weather actually works in our favor. Yep. Sometimes you need a dome. So, you have mentioned, and you've been really adamant about this, that the discussion has kind of gotten muddy especially since Northwest Indiana came into the picture. How so?
Well, I mean, we've been having these conversations since 2021. I mean, that was when the Bears first put forth their initial interest in the piece of land, the 326 acres that was the old Arlington International Racecourse, beloved, beautiful racecourse that we didn't really have time to mourn because we were so excited about the opportunity of bringing the Bears in. I did not think that in 2026 we'd still be talking about how do we get this done. Give me a shovel. I'd like to move forward, but we are concerned about this Indiana play. And we know that Governor Braun is aggressively pursuing the Bears. And that is a concern of ours. And we'll certainly maybe hear more about it this evening in his State of the State address. But we'd like to just bring the legislators together here in Illinois, in Springfield, and get this deal done, because the Chicago Bears should be in Illinois, and they will always be the Chicago Bears. There's lots of teams that play in the suburbs. The Dallas Cowboys play in Arlington, Texas, and Santa Clara has the San Francisco team. So let's keep them in Cook County, and let's keep that revenue in Cook County.
And speaking of the revenue, you've mentioned there's a lot of misinformation out there. Talk about the taxpayer aspect of this, because that really is the monumental piece in this that seems to be the crux of whether they're in Illinois or on the move to another state.
Well, this is going to be the largest development in Illinois history. I mean, this is going to be huge. It's going to be $5 billion easily. The Chicago Bears have committed to paying for the stadium, $2 billion. I believe the NFL is looking to make a contribution there. So the Chicago Bears have never asked the taxpayers of Cook County or Illinois to pay for their stadium. What they are asking for are two things, really. They're asking for property tax certainty. They're asking for what's called a mega project bill, or you could call it a pilot bill, which is this payment in lieu of taxes, where they're able to negotiate some property tax rates with the local municipalities. And this legislation is really enabling legislation. It doesn't actually cost the state of Illinois any money, but what it would do would lock in a base rate for property taxes, and then allow them to negotiate directly with the school districts, with the park districts, with the municipality in a graduated scale. Obviously, there's not going to be any children living on this piece of land for a number of years, and they're not going to be needing school or park district for that matter. So allowing them to have some tax certainty. And the other thing about this bill that's put forth by, there's two bills, one in the Senate by Mark Walker, Senator Walker, and then also in the House, we've got Mary Beth Canty and Nicole Grassi with their bill. It is not specific to the Chicago Bears. It is for any large company that wants to come in and make over $500 million in investment in the state of Illinois. It gives them some of that tax certainty. So that's one part of the ask, and it's a big part. The other half of this is, they're going to need some sewers. They're going to need some roads. They're going to need some curbs, just like any development that would go into that site is going to need. And we're talking about a piece of land the size of Epcot. So it is a huge piece of land. So yes, it is going to be expensive to put in that kind of infrastructure. And so they're asking for some assistance with this. But to clarify, they have never asked for the stadium to be paid for by the taxpayers.
Let me ask you this, though. Obviously for a mega project bill, there is a big difference in how the country is looking at, say, a Governor Pritzker versus a Governor Braun. We have a governor who, yes, he is in the hunt for re-election, but he's also in the conversation as a possibility to run for president. Do you think that factors into him maybe not wanting to look like he's helping billionaires?
I understand that narrative. I certainly do. And I also understand that we really don't want to lose the historic Chicago Bears out of the state of Illinois. I mean, this bill, again, is good for the state, and it's a little out of my wheelhouse. I'm going to be real honest with you. I'm a sales and marketing gal and a hotelier by trade, really. But what I understand of this and how it works is is good for a business attraction in a general kind of way. And that's why we're hoping we will get legislators to sign off on this that are outside of the immediate area of Arlington Heights. This is, this could be for any project in central Illinois, downstate and beyond, in the city of Chicago as well. And we know there's a lot of legislators in Chicago who do not want to be seen as having allowed the Chicago Bears to leave the city. We also feel in Arlington Heights that you can't accuse them of not having done their due diligence. I mean, it has been 4 years, I forget how many years it's been, where they did seriously look at multiple sites in the city of Chicago, and there's just not as good a piece of land as what we have out here in the suburbs.
Yeah, and when we are thinking about how long it's all taking, obviously we're seeing places like or teams like Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, they went through this, and then we see them on the other side of it, literally on the other side of the state that they initially started in.
Right.
Do you feel like we're headed in that direction?
I am concerned that we could potentially lose this stadium project outside of the state of Illinois. And that is why, we've been kind of keeping a low profile for a while now. And we created a business coalition, a regional business coalition. We're working closely with the Downtown Arlington Heights Business Association, as well as Touchdown Arlington Heights, which was a grassroots group of Arlington Heights businesses who got involved very early in welcoming the Bears to Arlington Heights, but also the Schaumburg Business Association and the Greater O'Hare Association. And really from a business perspective, trying to tell the story of the economic impact that this project will bring, not just to the immediate area, but to the state of Illinois and, the 50,000 jobs, construction jobs, that will, good paying jobs that will come to the state to build the stadium, as well as the surrounding entertainment district, the 9,000 jobs that will be maintained from there with the different hospitality positions and what's needed at the site itself.
Yeah. I do see, I occasionally scroll through the comments. I don't like to get through the comments on every topic all the time because it is a rabbit hole. But but you do see on this particular topic that people say, like, why don't they just pay for it all themselves? Like, why are we even having this discussion? Pay for it and move on.
It's not uncommon. Again, they are paying for the stadium. So they're not asking for assistance with the stadium. This is a gigantic piece of land. So the stadium itself is only going to take a small portion of the 326 acres. And then in addition to that, there will be an entertainment district, not unlike if you've been up to Titletown outside of Lambeau Field in Green Bay, where you'll have restaurants and maybe 2 hotels. I'd love to see a Hall of Fame where you have a year-round attraction. And just like you have in some of the surrounding communities, these entertainment districts, they're going to need roads, they're going to need curbs. And the municipalities often will help pay for that, as will, there's different grants that are available, again, a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. But that's where they're asking for assistance. And I know with the way that properties are assessed in Cook County on the triennial basis, it complicates any other kind of tax certainty that they might get. So this pilot legislation really helps them get some certainty and allow them to forecast what their expenses are going to be as new revenue is brought into the region.
Mm-hmm. What other misinformation do you think is out there that, when you're looking at it from your perspective and the research that you and your office are doing to try to keep the Bears, at least in Illinois, are finding?
Well, accessibility is key to us here. No, we're not Chicago, but we are Chicagoland, and we do have I've been told the highest concentration of season ticket holders are right here in the Northwest suburbs. So we actually have quite a few members of the McCaskey family who live out in the Northwest suburbs. So accessibility is going to be king. I mean, we're right near O'Hare Airport. You've got the intersection of 90 and 53. Maybe need to widen 53 a little bit, but we did just upgrade 90 a few years back. So you've got a lot of lanes that'll move people pretty quickly all the way up the corridor into Wisconsin, even Minneapolis, when we have those Vikings fans come down. And then there's the Metro. We've got the Harvard line, which will go all the way up and down Northwest Highway right to Ogilvie. So folks from the city will be able to get out to Arlington Park maybe easier than it is to get to Soldier Field, where you're kind of jimmied up against the lake there. Yeah, it's great visuals, and we'll still get that B-roll of the bean and Navy pier and everything that makes Chicago so great, and all the things that we love about Chicago will still be shown during the games. But just enhancing the fan experience with the ease of access, I think really can't be underestimated how good that's going to be.
And the aspect of widening the highway would have to happen even if it were Indiana as well. I mean, again, going back to the comments that I've read, some people have been really worried about that aspect of things if we were to move down to Indiana.
Yeah, our greatest amenity really is O'Hare International Airport, with some 2,500 flights in and out every single day. So, I mean, we're all spoiled out here. We never have a connector flight. We always have direct flights. So whether it's the teams coming in and the media coming in, or the concert goers coming in, whether they're flying in, driving in, or taking the train in, it is going to be a good experience from start to finish with this beautiful stadium, but also just, if you're walking a mile and a half to get to the train station outside of what is it, on Roosevelt, it's tricky. So we think that this is going to have some nice tailgating spots, some fun vibe that'll be open all year long and be a destination in its own right.
Yeah, the Metro would definitely be booming even more. You said that you had largely been quiet. Do you feel like, I mean, you're writing an op-ed now. Do you feel like that visit from the NFL commissioner and seeing the picture that's kind of gone viral now of them in Northwest Indiana calls you to say, hey, wait a minute, we need to speak up?
A little bit, yes. Again, we are a sales and marketing organization. We work for the hotels and restaurants in the communities. And we like to talk about the ecosystem. When we bring visitors in to enjoy our venues like Topgolf and the downtown Arlington Heights restaurants, they make these businesses more profitable and sustainable for the enjoyment of the residents as well. So there's kind of an ecosystem that exists. Now, bringing something like this in, which has the potential to bring just so many more visitors to our area and bring in so many new attractions and fun things to do that our residents will enjoy. We, as a board, and I'm speaking on behalf of our board of directors, which is a mix of municipal leaders as well as business owners and executives, as well as the support of the Greater O'Hare Association and the Schaumburg Business Association and those other entities that I mentioned, we did feel like, let's get this done, because that's a quote from Governor Braun. Let's get this done, and we think that threat is real, and we feel that this is the time as the legislators go down to Springfield. I know the senators are down there now, and the representatives go down next week. We want to get everyone at the table and to start talking in earnest, and anything that we can do to help assist that along and move that along, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, it seemed like a comment from the governor yesterday was maybe the most positive I had heard in quite some time in terms of any type of way of keeping them here in Illinois, other than just saying, hey, we're not doing this. So maybe he's kind of feeling the pressure too, now that Indiana's involved.
I can't speak to that, but yeah, I mean, we really do not want to be losing this out of state. I mean, these are business people, right? And they're going to go where the dollars are, and that's unfortunate. But the McCaskey family has a long history in the northern suburbs, northwest suburbs, and we feel that they want to be here. Mm-hmm. They really want to be here. And this is a really fantastic piece of land that they already own. Mm-hmm. So we just really want to get the ball rolling. And I think maybe the governor is understanding that as well. But we need some of those city legislators to come along with us on this.
All right, we'll see what happens from here, but good to hear Meet Chicago Northwest speaking up on behalf of the plot of land that's, as you said, already been purchased in Arlington Heights. Thank you so much for your time, Heather.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Great chatting with you today. Oh boy, what will happen with the Bears? I mean, our focus first and foremost has to be on the game this weekend. Sunday, 5:30, divisional round. I mean, it's just been an electric season. But at the same time, yeah, you know, the Bears leadership has to kind of strike while the iron is hot, while the team is hot. You couldn't do that last year, the year before. Now everybody's like, wait a minute, we don't want to lose this winning team. And so it'll be very, very interesting to see how all of this shakes out in the end and how long it takes for some type of resolution to even be made. You know, I think that the Bears really wanted to get the ball rolling in 2026. And Governor Pritzker said, 2026, yeah, you guys aren't a priority on our list of things. I mean, there are a lot of things happening right now. That is true. Very serious things that the legislature has to take up. But we also don't want to lose the Bears. So we shall see what happens with it. But definitely from the side of Meet Chicago Northwest, you know, they're looking at this from an economic standpoint in terms of what the Northwest suburbs, what Arlington Heights stands to get in being able to host so many things that could come from having the Chicago Bears there. Again, we'll see what happens. It's 2:22 though. We're going to take a 2-minute break. We'll reset things and then we'll move forward from there. Oh, wow. Look, it's 2:25, everybody. We are looking live in the space capsule as they are getting ready to close the hatch. Let's listen into a bit of it, what they're saying. Well, he was given some instructions as I was speaking, and then the minute I said, well, let's listen in, he was done with the instructions there. But you can see some action taking place, of course. This mission to get back home is escalated. You know, there was an emergency that is caused for NASA to bring this crew back ahead of schedule. health emergency. And so we're certainly hoping that all goes well as they begin this medical evacuation right now that we're seeing play out. It's pretty unprecedented what we are seeing. This is the 4-person astronaut crew there at the SpaceX capsule that's now undocked from the International Space Station. The members of this Crew 11 mission are coming home a month early, in fact, because one of the crew members' health condition just caused a lot of worries. They haven't said exactly, what is going on here, but it at least gave them enough of a scare that they decided to bring everybody back down to the ground. And again, it's the first medical evacuation, in fact, of the International Space Station in its 25-year history. So again, what we're seeing here, unprecedented, and really important that they get this right so that our astronauts can get back home safely. Officials have been saying here that the astronauts' condition is stable at this point in time. So, it's not of that nature. And they have not released any information as to which astronaut is having any issues or the nature, again, of the problem. But it is now the first medical evacuation of the International Space Station in its 25-year history. Our thoughts and prayers are with them as they, again, are here in the capsule, getting ready to close that hatch. And we certainly hope that they're able to make a safe journey back after all this time, but coming home about a month early here. We've been watching several things that have been taking place here, both at home and then also all the way up in space as we have been moving on with our program here, just kind of looking at, what's been happening. One of the other big topics that came out right before we came up here to Studio 32, we got an email about a new lawsuit, a new federal lawsuit here about fake Ozempic. We talk about GLP-1s almost on a daily basis at this point in time, whether they're good for people, bad for people, how often they'll be around or how long they'll be around, how often people should use them. Will people have to, if you get on them, will you have to use them forever? But fake Ozempic. In fact, last month in December, the FDA was warning consumers because it had gotten to the level where the FDA had to step in and say something. FDA was warning consumers not to use counterfeit Ozempic or semaglutides found in the U.S. drug supply chain. Bad. But now we're seeing that this has gone to yet another level here. It is 2:30, and I want to bring in our legal analyst, Karen Conti of Conti and Dolan, to talk a little bit more about the new developments today. Thank you so much for joining us last minute here.
Hi, Anita. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. We always appreciate being able to call on you for the legalese of things, and this certainly is one here. So let me just ask you, and again, I know we've called you into this at the last minute, but your initial reaction to hearing about this Chicago nurse charged with distributing counterfeit Ozempic.
Yeah, I guess, it's not really that uncommon because, if you do your studies, the World Health Organization says that if you're buying drugs online, 50% of it or more is probably counterfeit. And if you're buying it in Mexico or you're buying it in other places and you're not buying it with a valid prescription from your doctor at a state licensed pharmacy, your chances of getting something that is not real or even worse, harmful to you are very, very high. So the FDA takes this very seriously. They are very aggressive because there's more and more now of these types of counterfeits.
Yeah, and it says, according to the criminal information filed in the U.S. District Court of the Northern District of Illinois, that these drugs were labeled as the weight loss medication Ozempic, but they were not manufactured by Ozempic's manufacturer, Novo Nordisk, nor did they contain Ozempic's active ingredient, semaglutide, so you don't even know what you're putting in your body here. How serious are these charges?
Well, not as serious as one would think. There were 4 counts altogether, and each of them has a maximum of 1-year sentence. So 4 years is really a drop in the bucket, in my view, for selling drugs that people rely upon and could, in fact, be harmful to people.
Now, could Novo Nordisk end up being liable, even though, like, they didn't make it?
You know, they can, and the FDA is coming down harder on drug manufacturers. Why? They are putting the duty on drug manufacturers to really protect their supply lines and to protect their drugs in ways that can be identified, meaning that if you get a drug, you should be able to, in some way, determine that it's the real drug, whether there's a numbering on the labels, etc. So yes, we're seeing even companies that are not doing anything wrong. The only thing they're doing wrong is not being careful enough to make sure that those counterfeits cannot be detected.
And this woman was a registered professional nurse, although not licensed by law to prescribe, administer, dispense, or sell Ozempic. You know, you ask yourself, like, I wonder if the people who were buying it from her thought they were buying it legitimately from, you know, hey, here's a registered nurse, but not understanding, like, she actually shouldn't be prescribing the medication, like maybe just not understanding what she should be doing, or if they kind of knew, like, hey, I can get it through her easier than other means.
Well, you know, I think, Anita, human nature is such that we want a quick fix and we want it cheaper than other people are getting it for. And, you know, if you've ever vacationed in Mexico, how many pharmacies do you see up and down the streets promising your ADHD drugs, Ozempic, anti-anxiety medicine, and all of these things, even steroids, and you can walk in and buy this stuff. And again, you might be tempted to do that, but you are really taking a chance, because unless you're getting a doctor to prescribe it, and a really good doctor, and these pharmacies are actually licensed, I don't even know that I would trust it if it was licensed, because you don't know what you're getting.
Yeah. And, you know, I wonder, I remember when, you know, another one of these semaglutides first came out. And of course, semaglutides can be very helpful for people with diabetes or things of that nature. But I remember watching a documentary, and there were people who were going down to Mexico because they felt like, you know, it was so, the price of things like insulin and EpiPens and things of that nature were so high here in Northern America.
Yeah, and, you know, they can legitimately sell things cheaper in Mexico for various reasons having to do with regulation. But again, I mean, you have to weigh the idea that, you know, you're taking this drug and it could be something that it's laced with something that's really bad for you, or that's interfering with the drug that you're taking legitimately up here. And the other thing you have to worry about, Anita, is if you get a drug down there and it's not prescribed and it's not distributed by a licensed pharmacy, and you get caught taking it into the United States, you could be prosecuted for that, especially things that are not FDA approved. And I've seen people try to do that, and that is a big no-no, and that could land you in a criminal courthouse.
Yeah, that's a biggie. And then even when we think about, like, people, you know, having an issue with, like, the medical system, the insurance here in the U.S., and going down there to get things for a cheaper price, and maybe, you know, it was an act of desperation. I also think about, like, okay, what if you take something and you have an episode down there? I mean, that's only going to multiply your issues if you have a medical episode down there and you need to get back home.
Absolutely. And not to disparage Mexico, but their healthcare system is not what it is up here. And you don't even know if your insurance covers some of these things. If you don't have the right travel insurance, it may not be covered. So you are looking at a world of hurt. And, you know, I would just err on the side of caution. Also, another thing that your viewers can do, Anita, is to look on the FDA website. There's a portion called MedWatch, and you can look at your drug that you buy and determine are these real? And there's ways that you can determine whether certain drugs are legitimate by looking at certain bin numbers, et cetera. And if you have a problem with a drug and you want to report it, that's your duty, I think, to do it. And you can do it right on that website, so you can maybe prevent somebody else from having a problem down the line.
Yeah. Do you think we're going to see more of these charges? Like, is this the federal government kind of clamping down on these practices, or do you think we're just kind of catching up to things?
I think we're going to see more and more and more. As unaffordable as some of these drugs are, and as attractive as some of these drugs are, as you said, everyone's talking about these drugs and everybody wants to try these drugs. And some doctors won't prescribe them here if you're not overweight enough or you don't have diabetes. So people are heading down to Mexico and to other places to try to get it illegitimately. So I think we're going to see more and more of this. And we're going to see more harm to people as well.
Yeah, and we talked about Novo Nordisk. Can anybody else be held liable? Is there any more to look at that maybe, Novo Nordisk is a big company, but are there some other issues there too?
Well, I mean, pharmacies are going to be held responsible if for some reason they're distributing fake drugs, and certainly the person or the entity from whom you buy it. Like, for instance, this woman who is being prosecuted, you could conceivably sue her. But again, how much money is she going to have if, in fact, you are horribly damaged by a fake drug?
Yeah. Anything else that you think we should take from this case that we're seeing and the possibility of seeing others?
I mean, if there's going to be corners that you cut in your life when it comes to medical and when it comes to medicine, I just don't think that's where you're going to cut corners here and really get the benefit of it. And when you buy things online, as far as drugs, know that the World Health Organization said that more than 50% is fake. So you could either be buying something that has nothing in it, or you could be buying something that could harm you.
Yikes. And one more time, what was the site where we can go to see if things are legitimate or not?
Yes, you can go to the FDA website, and there's a portion called MedWatch. And you can either look up the drug and see if you can, that'll help you determine if that's a counterfeit drug. And you can also report cases where you may have purchased something that really wasn't what it was.
Karen, thank you so much. It's really scary to think about, more of these counterfeit products being out there just, for people who are buying online. But again, then there's the other aspect of people trying to go maybe to Mexico to get it for cheaper, and the real concerns that you should keep in mind. Karen, thank you. We always appreciate you.
Take care, Anita.
All right, you too. It's 2:38, everyone. It's really one of those, if it looks too good to be true, that price that you're seeing for something, it probably is. And these are real, could be life or death situations, for buying something that you don't know what you're putting in your body. So the charges for this woman, this Chicago nurse now charged with distributing counterfeit Ozempic. Her name is Sharon Sackman, and she's now charged with, let's see here, distributing counterfeit drugs to 3 individuals in Chicago in 2023 that now we know it was counterfeit Ozempic. And goodness grief. Be careful, everybody. Be careful. I mean, even just this week, we've seen a lot of conversation about like the long-term risks associated with some of these drugs. Like, do your due diligence and just be careful when you are using them and when you're seeking out people to give them to you. It's about 2:40. Let's take a quick break, about 2 minutes, and we'll be back to move on with the program. All right, 2:42, and we're continuing to monitor things as these astronauts, NASA astronauts, are preparing to head back home a little early for medical reasons here. It's a 4-person astronaut crew. They have been in the midst of trying to close that hatch, but it's going to be about 4 o'clock our time before they actually start their journey back home here. So just kind of, we're on the 14th of January now, taking you back in time. It was January 7th that there was like the first public sign I'm seeing of the current medical issue that has caused them to leave a little bit early here, about a month early than expected. They called off the first planned spacewalk of the year on January 7th, saying that the agency was monitoring a medical concern with a crew member that arose that day aboard the orbital complex. And then the next day, the agency announced plans to bring its Crew 11 team back home early. Again, they have not said exactly what the medical issue was. They have not identified who or which astronaut it is that was experiencing them. And I can tell you that upon getting ready to come back, there was some type of press conference where all of them spoke and they said, we're doing okay. So we're not exactly sure of the specifics here. Obviously, anytime you're dealing with a medical issue, there are lots of laws here that prevent much of that from being said, but it could have been anything. But it was at least serious enough for NASA to go ahead and bring this team back a month early here for their time in space here. It is the first medical evacuation of the International Space Station in 25 years. So whatever it was, obviously we're hoping for the best for the entire team, that they get back home safely, and that whatever was going on or is going on, that whichever astronaut it is doing okay and will be okay in time. Space obviously is one journey. I mean, just yesterday we were talking with a young gentleman who was talking about, in his mind and in his time in school, kind of conceptualizing a hotel on the moon one day, so that's one journey that may be available to people at some point in time. But for those of us who maybe like to stay a little closer to like Earth and the things of Earth, flights, cruises, a road trip might be more of our speed. And when we hear about certain things happening, it gives you a little pause even for the things that we do on a regular basis, like going on a cruise. So just recently we found out that there was a cruise that just got back to Florida that had 94 people affected by norovirus, an outbreak. I mean, it's not the first time we've heard of a norovirus outbreak on a cruise ship, but my goodness, 94 people. We want to talk a little bit more about it, and we're going to bring in our cruise blogger, our expert, to tell us more about it. Now, when I say 94 that were affected, were you one?
I was on the ship, but thankfully I was not affected by norovirus. And in fact, it was a lot less dramatic than I'd always thought it would to be on a cruise ship when an outbreak happens.
Okay, well, tell us about what happened.
So it was a lengthy cruise. It was a bucket list cruise, a cruise of a lifetime, Panama Canal. It was a long one, about 2 weeks. And so about 3 days before debarkation, the captain came over the ship-wide public announcement system, which is rare for this cruise line. They don't do that often. So I was in my room. That caught my attention. I actually recorded it because I knew he was going to announce something big. And the announcement was very vague. At that time, he simply said that there had been a number of participants or cruisers on that particular sailing that had reported gastrointestinal symptoms and issues and that were seeking medical help, and to please remember to wash your hands. And I didn't think much else of it until the next day. I inquired at guest services what was happening, and they told me that at that time there were only about 26 cases, and then it started with 2, had doubled the next day to 4 to 8. So it pretty much had a doubling effect. And I didn't even know that we were an official CDC outbreak cruise until I got home. And in fact, the cruise line never even notified us. I learned about it in the news. So that was interesting, and I didn't expect that. I thought the cruise line would tell us that that was the case.
Yeah. I mean, have you had any communication with the cruise line since about the fact that Yeah, you would think if all of that was happening, then maybe some type of notification would have gone out.
It would stand to reason. And in 45 cruises, this is the first time I've ever been on a cruise that had an outbreak. So I always assumed that would be the case. But other than that one announcement that the captain made, again, a couple of days before the end of the cruise, we did not get any notification. And since being home, I actually saw the news about the outbreak the very night that I returned home and learned that the group that was embarking after we got off the ship, that their embarkation had been delayed because the cruise line had to go through a pretty stringent cleaning protocol to prepare the ship for the next group. So they were delayed getting on. But I've now been home basically a week as of Friday and have not heard anything from the cruise line other than what we've seen in the news. But I guess at this point, there's nothing that can be done. Of course, I read up on it. Norovirus symptoms usually present within 24 hours of exposure. So basically all the weekend, I was kind of anxious, like, oh, I hope I don't have any rumbling tummy issues. And thankfully I didn't. So obviously I'm in the clear now. But it was just shocking to learn that cruisers really don't get any notification at all. Now, we did see some of these enhanced cleaning protocols happening on the ship. So that was kind of my visual signal that, okay, things are actually getting worse. But other than that, we didn't get any official communication.
Okay. And, Holland America has put out a statement saying the health of our guests and crew is a top priority and consistent with CDC protocols. We conducted a comprehensive sanitization of the ship when the cruise ended Friday in Fort Lauderdale. You've spoken before, we've spoken before about what happens when things go down on a cruise ship. And you mentioned like looking into blogs to see when people are talking, like the chat. Sometimes people have a conversation in the chat about what's happening, and that's your first inclination, or that's maybe your first revelation about what's happening on the ship. Did you look into the chat?
I did, and sure enough, the social media commentary is way ahead of official cruise line notification. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that is an important reminder to cruisers to really stay plugged into these groups, because that's where you're going to hear it first and foremost. So you have to be careful, because rumors can ignite. So you have to make sure that you're using some discretion of determining what's true versus false. But there were some cruisers that posted in our group that they had been diagnosed with norovirus and they were actually quarantined in their room. So that was kind of the first indicator. And then there were some folks commenting, oh, us too. Then the captain's announcement came on. Then we noticed at dinner that they weren't letting us use salt and pepper. Or sugar for cappuccinos. The crew was coming and doing that for us. I noticed at guest services and places where they had ink pens, that they had dirty pens and sanitized pens. All the self-serve stuff was removed from the coffee bar. So I started to see these things as well. But again, in terms of an official outbreak notification, still have received absolutely nothing from the cruise line at all. And again, if I were not plugged into cruise news, I would not really even know.
Yeah. When you think about not being allowed to use salt and pepper, I mean, it sounds like, whoa, wait a minute. But then you think about it. Well, they didn't want everybody touching the very same things, because norovirus is highly contagious. And in fact, it's the #1 cause of foodborne illnesses in the United States, according to, the latest data here. You mentioned the symptoms appearing between 12 and 48 hours. So hopefully, foreseeably, you're in the clear. But do you think that things like this, like I mentioned when we first started this conversation, or when I was getting ready to come to you, that when you see things like this, it does give you pause as to whether you want to get on the next cruise. You've been on so many. Does this faze you at all?
It doesn't. And in fact, there are a number of cruise haters out there. I hear from them in social media every day that love to say, I would never take a cruise. Cruise ships are just floating petri dishes. And as much as I love cruising, okay, I will actually acknowledge there's a little bit of truth to that, because you are in a very contained situation with thousands of other people. On our particular cruise, it was actually a smaller ship, and still we had, with crew included, about 4,000 people in a very contained environment together for 2 weeks. So as I noted, guest services said that it started with just a couple of people that presented with symptoms, and that spread like wildfire. So that very much is the case. But there's common sense things that cruisers can take as measures to ensure that they are less likely to get sick. Obviously, hand washing is the most important thing. I actually didn't know this until I had this experience, that hand sanitizer, alcohol-based sanitizer, is not effective against norovirus. And I think a lot of times cruise lines have those sanitizing stations out. Cruisers have this false sense of safety and not realizing that's completely ineffective. And the big thing that I do, I know this is a hot take in cruise world, I do not like cruise line buffets. I know that's a big part of cruising. I avoid
sure
them when
is.
possible because I've seen some things.
So what do you do then?
So cruise ships have an abundance of places to eat. I always say you're never going to starve on a cruise ship. I always go to places on the ship where they actually prepare and serve the food to you. In general, even on land, I avoid buffets because people just have a tendency to not be very hygienic. I am a little OCD by nature, so I avoid buffets at all costs. And on a cruise ship, there's plenty of places there where you can get food that is served to you, not picked over and touched by people that don't wash their hands.
Yeah. You know, the only cruise that I've been on, I want to say it was either somewhere between 3 and 5 days. And I think that people do think about, like, especially longer cruise ships or cruises, like what could happen in that extended period of time. And like, okay, if something does happen, I'm stuck out at sea.
That is definitely a concern that folks have. But I always remind people that generally on any cruise, regardless of the duration, if you actually look at the cruise map, which I love doing on a cruise, where it shows you your exact proximity in the ocean relative to land, you'll see that that ship pretty much hugs the coastline, unless you're doing something like a transatlantic or a trans-Pacific cruise. So you're never really too far from shore. And if things really do proverbially hit the fan, that captain can get you to land pretty quickly. So that is not a cause of concern for me. It's more of the lack of hygienic behaviors of other cruisers. But humans are humans. You're going to find bad hygiene everywhere at sea and at land.
Yeah, that is true. Or in space, as we have found out now. Things can happen anywhere. That is very true, very fair that things can happen anywhere. Thank you so much for your time. Melissa, where can people find you? Because I know you're always giving gems about the cruising world, and you're always on a cruise. So one, let me ask you where people can find you, but I'd also love to know, have you already booked the next cruise?
I have. It's my birthday cruise on Carnival Mardi Gras, and I'll be embarking in 2 weeks. So it's my annual tradition. I love it. But I do have a website, profmelissa.com, P-R-O-F, melissa.com. I actually have on my homepage a travel guide I wrote specifically for cruisers. For travel insurance, because it pains me when I see cruisers not travel with travel insurance. And for my 90 plus fellow passengers that ended up in the medical center, they probably got an unpleasant bill realizing it's over $500 to seek medical treatment on a ship, and it's not covered usually by their US based health insurance. So I'm a big advocate of getting travel insurance for anyone that takes a cruise.
See, I said she drops gems. That's something most people wouldn't know. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you take care, Melissa Newman. Always great to catch up with her, and she really is always on the go. So she has already booked her next trip, even after getting off of a cruise that did have some issues there. She is unfazed, and that's kind of how you have to be if you're going to keep going on them. It's about 2:55 right now. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll move forward. Okay, everyone, 2:59 right now. President Trump is taking some questions, so we're going to listen in to a bit of the question and answer portion of his event. Okay, so apologize for that. We thought that we had the audio for that, but actually we don't have the audio, as he was just taking part in a signing ceremony there. You could see he was flanked by several families in that area as well. The signing ceremony was to roll back some Obama era regulations in terms of what type of milk could be served in schools, whether it was whole milk. It can be brought back now. I believe during the Obama eras, it had to go to like 2% milk or skim milk. And now it can be whole milk that is given to children in school. So that's why he was flanked by several families who were there in the Oval Office as he was doing the signing ceremony there. Want to take you to Wall Street because a lot of the things that have happened at the White House this week have affected Wall Street and what we've been seeing here. So you can see when we started the week, started in the green and quickly went downhill. So Monday was a mixed day. Tuesday, all red. We looked at it right when it closed on Tuesday, right when the stock market closed on Tuesday, and it was in the red all day yesterday. Here we are on Wednesday, halfway through the week, and we are seeing more red on the screen. As of right now, down 42 points for the Dow Jones here. It's just been a low day. More record levels that we're seeing here. So the S&P 500 trading 0.9% lower. The Dow Jones at one point in time or over the course of the day has lost 164 points here. The NASDAQ shedding 1.5%. And as I've been saying, there's a lot that goes into this. There were losses at the beginning of this week that were directly tied to the president's call for credit interest reform. He made those comments on Friday. There's also the issue of what's going on with his attacks on the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, that happened on Tuesday. Some growing worries there about the central bank's independence and this DOJ investigation into Jerome Powell and his office. There's a lot. There are the wars that are happening overseas, and then also the president calling off all of his meetings with Iran's leaders to talk about oil. That's another aspect of what's kind of drawing on what we're seeing on Wall Street today. These what we call geopolitical concerns that really have great impact as well. So we'll continue to see. I mean, even today there were leaders from Greenland and Denmark who were at the White House meeting with the vice president, and from that aspect of things, there are questions about NATO and the future of NATO. So not a good week thus far for Wall Street. We'll see where things continue to go. 2 more days, and obviously things could turn around at any point in time for any cause. But right now, not looking good there on Wall Street for the stock market. It is 3:03 right now. Let me tell you a little bit about what you can expect in this hour. Then we'll take a quick break and we'll start to get into some things. Our next guest is going to be Sam Toya. We got some pretty unexpected, at least from our standpoint, news today that one area, one local food hall is going to be closing up shop soon. And yeah, it was pretty shocking because you think of how many businesses are represented in that one food hall. What happens to all of them? What does this say about what's happening in that area? We'll talk more with Sam Toya about that. We're also going to be talking about grants for artists in our area. That's a really good conversation about some unexpected blessings, really, for some of the folks who have been doing the work, putting in the work to really showcase the best of Chicago. So that should be around 3:30. It's a really heartwarming aspect of things here. And I mean, maybe the most heartwarming aspect of things that we could close the show on today will be the Puppy Bowl. I mean, yeah, maybe I buried the lead a little. Yeah, we're going to talk about the Puppy Bowl. We have 2 puppies from our area that are going to be represented on the big day for the NFL. Obviously, we're hoping that the Bears are playing in that game, but aside from what will be happening in terms of football, there's the Puppy Bowl, and one of our great rescue centers here in this area is going to be represented, and so we're going to talk with one tail at a time. Let's take a quick break, 2 minutes, and then we'll start those discussions. .307. We're back in our 3 o'clock hour now, and we're going to take you downstate. Governor Pritzker is now taking part in an event where they are talking about new charging stations for electric cars in the state. Let's listen in.
9 million residents in Chicago and across most of northern Illinois. He's responsible for the management of an electric grid that delivers safe, reliable electricity to customers and for empowering them to manage their energy use. Under Gil's leadership, ComEd was named the most reliable utility in America by PA Consulting, and before joining ComEd, Quinones served more than a decade as president and CEO of the New York Power Authority, which is the nation's largest state-owned utility. We could not have brought this site here live today without the collaboration from our partners at ComEd or the 4 others across the state. So we really thank you to the whole team, and please welcome President and CEO Gil Quinones.
Thank you, Emily, for that introduction. Great to be at Wally's, the home of the Great American Road Trip. Here in Illinois, we're taking a road trip toward a future where electric vehicles are the dominant form of transportation. ComEd has mapped out a strategy along with its partners, that gets us there. And we are working with a coalition of determined partners led by Governor J.B. Pritzker. Absolutely no one has done more to build a road to the EV future than he has. From the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act to the Clean and Reliable Grid Affordability Act, he has been a champion of policies that are guiding us to a cleaner, more prosperous, more equitable energy future. As the governor said, there are over 162,000 EVs on Illinois' roads today, compared to just 25,000 in 2020. That's a 548% growth in just 5 years. And it's a credit to the governor's leadership. He is the captain of what we call Team Illinois, and ComEd is proud to be part of that team. We are also grateful to have partners like Wally's, which is embracing the electrified future. Thank you to Michael Rubenstein for hosting these chargers. Today wouldn't be possible without the dedication of companies like Iona that are scaling up the infrastructure with a focus on fast public chargers. Last year, ComEd helped Iona bring 28 of their fast charging bays online at 4 different sites throughout our service territory. Thank you to CEO Seth Cutler for your work, giving major automakers a stake in EV adoption. At ComEd, we recognize that it takes time to convince drivers to make the switch. We have to bring down costs. So last year alone, ComEd awarded nearly $130 million in rebates for businesses and residential customers through a state-approved EV funding portfolio. Another barrier to adoption is what's called range anxiety. For the last 2 years, ComEd has offered rebates for building publicly accessible charging stations. These rebates have supported the construction of nearly 10,000 public and private charging ports in ComEd's service territory. Of course, the other challenge is building infrastructure that enables public charging stations to connect to the power grid. In our utility business, we call that make-ready work. Of course, and that's what we did right here in Pontiac. My team, they're here with us today, coordinated a 2,000-foot electric feeder extension and installed other equipment such as transformers and switchgear that then connected to all the fast chargers outside. We still have many miles to travel on the road to a fully electrified transportation future. But today, that destination feels a little bit closer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, President Quinones and the whole ComEd team again. Next, we are really excited to have the President and CEO of Wally's, Michael Rubenstein, here today. As you can see, we're here at this beautiful Wally's in the heart of Pontiac, a key pit stop, and we've all been enjoying their fabulous amenities today. And it's a perfect fit for Iona, as Wally's is home of the Great American Road Trip. Wally's provides fresh, fast, refreshing amenities and blends old-fashioned courtesy with high-tech service. And Iona is happy to be a partner with Wally's and really enjoying this atmosphere today. Today, Michael Rubenstein is here. He has a background in law and holds an MBA from Tulane University's A.B. Freeman School of Business, and it's been a pleasure to work with him. Please welcome to the stage CEO Michael Rubenstein.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Governor Pritzker, Gil, and staff. It's amazing. It's really kind of a pinch me moment to be here and to have everyone here. The first question everyone asks me is, why did you do this? For those of you who don't know, this is the very first Wally's. So when we had this business idea, this was the first location we picked in Pontiac, Illinois, driving down the interstate, looking for a site, went into Pontiac City Hall, asked who was in charge of economic development, and the mayor popped out and said, hey, I can help you. And that was the very start of how we ended up in Pontiac. I grew up in a rural Missouri town on Route Route 66, a lot of family memories of doing the road trip. And so you can see so much of what that brings, that nostalgic feel with the Wagoneer, with the wood trim. The Winnebago really all ties into that. And so with my background in real estate, I was with my cousin Chad, who is in the convenience store business, and said, hey, I'm in real estate. I know how to build these things, which I didn't. I had no clue what I was doing. You guys know how to operate it. Hey, let's start a business and build this massive travel center in a small town off the interstate. And then we opened this big, beautiful store September 10th of 2020. So obviously a very challenging time. It was the second wave of COVID, and so we are in the travel center business, and the road, no one's traveling, and actually the interstate right up here was closed. So we had this amazing store, and it was a very nervous time because honestly, we thought we'd be out of business in 6 months. We had our grand opening right over there. There's probably 15 people here, all spread 6 feet apart. I'm pretty sure, my mom accounted for 50% of sales on that opening day.
All right. So listening in again to a bit of this event that's happening in Pontiac at the Wally's there, where Governor Pritzker is attending this ribbon cutting for a new electric vehicle charging site. So we're not exactly sure how long that's going to be going on and when they'll get to a question and answer with Governor Pritzker, but we'll continue to monitor that. Our next guest is on the line though now, so we're going to take a quick break, 2 minutes, and we'll get to that. We're back at 3:18 right now, and we got some sad news today, if you will, in the culinary world. Time Out Market in Fulton Market is closing. They announced today that their last day will be January 23rd. I want to go ahead and bring in Sam Toya. He's the president of the Illinois Restaurant Association to talk a little bit more about this, what seems sudden news for many of us. And I don't know if we'll even call it a trend that we're starting to see, because this isn't the first restaurant that has closed up shop in recent weeks. Sam, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
We always love having you here on the show. Did you hear rumblings that Time Out Market was having issues?
You know, it's been really rough on our independent restaurants here in the city of Chicago over the last, since the post-pandemic. You know, we've seen product costs go up 38%. We've seen labor costs go up 35%. We've seen fixed costs go up 19%. And, you know, when Time Out Market opened their market in the West Loop, it was obviously pre-pandemic. We had over 600,000 people coming down to the central business district to work every day. We know now that it's probably back up to 60%, but that's 40% less than when they put their business model together. They weren't expecting inflation to be as high as it is. They didn't expect that we would go from 600,000 people coming down to the central business district to 340,000. So those things obviously contributed to the reason they're closing. And they're also closing in some other markets as well. But it was a little bit of shock. But we also know that in the first half of 2025, over 496 restaurants closed in Chicago. It's been rough, like I said. I used to say the restaurant industry was an industry of nickels and dimes before the pandemic, and it's turned into an industry of pennies and nickels now. And when you lose a few pennies, you're going to go out of business. That's why we see so many empty storefronts up and down our commercial corridors, be it 79th Street or 53rd Street or Ashland Avenue or Clark Street or Lincoln Avenue. It's just, you know, you only can, you know, pass on these increases to your customers so much before your customers say, we can't come back. We can't afford it. Affordability is an issue out here.
Yeah. And for people who, you know, really, a lot of people say like, oh no, time out, you know, market. But then you ask like, well, when's the last time you went? Talk about the concept. What was the concept?
Well, you know, concept is obviously they were trying to go after a lot of lunch customers, and then also obviously, you know, early dinner concepts. You know, you could go in there, order from different venues, that different kind of food, and it was kind of like shared seating and everything. So it was a great idea, but again, you know, you got this obviously hybrid work schedule now, and there's just not that many people coming to our central business district. And that's why, you know, their business model was built on a different model before the pandemic, to be honest.
Yeah. And I went maybe about a month ago to Time Out Market, and it was kind of empty in there. I mean, I was there with a large group, but it was kind of empty other than us in Time Out Market when I went.
Yeah. When did you go? Did you go for lunch or dinner?
Dinner.
Yeah. See? Yeah. So, yeah. So it's rough out here. Like I just mentioned, over 496 restaurants closed in Chicago in the first half of 2025.
Yeah.
Affordability is an issue.
And of course, I wanted you to go over like the concept for Time Out Market because it's different. And yet we saw, you know, McCormick and Schmick's, you know, that also went out. And it seems each time like they're so sudden. Are they actual sudden decisions?
You know, usually, be it Time Out or, you know, a steakhouse or whoever, you know, one of these 496 restaurants that closed, they usually know, you know, after 2 or 3 months of a profit loss statement being in the loss column, and especially if you're a kind of a chain and you understand it, you're not sticking around because you're losing money. You know, an independent restaurant, they might try to fight it out. We can get out of this. But a big restaurant company, after 3 months of losing money, they're like, pull the plug. You know what I mean? Because it's not going to turn around. So is it sudden? To a degree, but it's not super sudden.
And you mentioned chains versus the mom and pops. There are some new chains over, you know, not far from it that are opening up. Does that play into something like a Time Out Market not making it?
Sure. I mean, the pie's only so big. But if, you know, people come in for the food, they come back for the service. So if you're doing your job, you know what I mean? You're going to be fine. I mean, look at some of these iconic restaurants we got, right? Like Gene and Giorgetti's or Gibson's. They've been around forever, right? So again, a good restaurant owner operator will make it, but it's becoming more competitive. And like I said, you can only pass on these price increases so much before your customers say, I can't afford it anymore. That is a problem. We're hearing this from Washington, D.C. to Springfield. We have to get affordability under control. We got to get inflation under control.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, like you said, there's issues when it comes to affordability, both here in Illinois and throughout the country. And so even when we think like, oh my goodness, you know, the taxes are high, is it a pro or anti business environment here? As you mentioned, Time Out has other markets in other cities that are also closing up right now.
That is absolutely true. And like I mentioned, it kind of has to do with people not working 5 days a week in the central business district, right? Maybe they're working 2 days a week or 3 days a week, but with Time Out and these other, you know, restaurant companies put their business plan together, they weren't seeing that the market was going to be cut in half. And that's part of the problem as well. You know, because when you had people coming down to the central business district 5 days a week, they go out to lunch, they go out to dinner, they stay here in our central business district and have, you know, have a meal. But they're not here, you know, and that's why you've seen more restaurants opening kind of like more on the North Shore or the Northwest suburbs, because you have people working from home. They still want to go out to eat, but they're going out to eat by restaurants that are close to where they live.
Very good point, and I know you know your stuff here. Maybe on a final point, you know, what does it mean for the restaurants that were inside of Time Out Market? I mean, some of them have like, you know, another restaurant in the area. Do you think that, okay, we'll close this one and just primarily focus on that? I mean, Time Out was kind of the overall place where they set up shop, but many of them have other locations.
Right. It's just like at the airport, right? When you go to the airport, you see all these other different restaurant concepts there. So yes, you usually have a restaurant concept in the neighborhood somewhere else, and then you do this concept like a Time Out or in the airport. Again, I'm sure Time Out had contracts with them, with these restaurants that were there. You know what I mean? That, you know, if we're not, you know, making money, we might have to close. So I'm sure that was, you know, those I's were dotted and those T's were crossed. So as a restaurant owner operator, if you get a good 7-year run, you're doing all right. It's a tough industry. And like I said, it used to be an industry of nickels and dimes. Now it's an industry of pennies and nickels. And we you know, we don't get inflation under control. We don't get this, you know, the labor market under control. We're going to see more restaurants go out of business.
Well, it's really hard to see any of these places shut their doors. And every time we find out about another one, or just, you know, you're riding around or you think you're getting ready to get a reservation at a place you haven't been in a long time and you find out that it's gone, it does hurt your heart to see another one close up.
Yeah, so I encourage all your viewers, please visit your independent restaurant in your neighborhood, because restaurants are the soul of every neighborhood throughout our 77 communities here in the city of Chicago. We are still the culinary capital of the United States.
And we want to stay that way. Sam, thank you so much as always. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. 327. I'm also excited about the restaurants that are coming. So we'll have to maybe pull on Sam, you know, in another time soon to talk about some of the restaurants that are going to be opening. Oh, you know, and another thing we can talk to him about, Restaurant Week here in the city of Chicago is getting ready to happen very soon. So plenty of things. I'm just thinking, after I've already gotten off the line with him, plenty of things that we can still talk to Sam Toya about. But we have several things that are lined up, and our chief meteorologist just walked in, so I don't want to belabor her time. I know she's got to get to the 4 o'clock news very soon. So let's take a quick break. We're going to bring her in and we'll move on from there. All right, 3:32 right now. Chief Meteorologist Emily Wiles here with me now to talk about this crazy day in terms of the weather that we've had out there. I'm trying to look out the window next to us. It's snowing again?
Snowing again. We have a couple flurries around the Chicago area right now, but a lot of the main action is still over in Northwest Indiana.
Nothing like this morning, what we're seeing right now.
This morning was an event.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I saw so many people out walking around just kind of braving the snow, the wind, and we had something called a snow squall that we were dealing with this morning. And, there's been a lot of questions of what is that? So that's a relatively new warning that's issued by the National Weather Service. This came about a few years ago, and it's able to give us a very localized warning for these really strong snow. You can think of it kind of like a squall line with thunderstorms almost, but in this case it's snow. So you have those really intense precipitation rates and near whiteout conditions almost instantly.
Yeah.
So typically with a snow squall, you're going to be dealing with a flash freeze. So you have a mess of the roads, you have the whiteout conditions, and it takes people by surprise because the onset of it is so quick.
It really did. When I woke up this morning, I looked out, it was kind of like this, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, oh, it's winter, in Chicago. And then all of a sudden I was like, whoa, what just happened? I cannot see anything.
And it got so windy. So I do what I'm going to compare this to is a squall line that you would see typically in the summertime. So think of a line of thunderstorms coming through, and then you get those downbursts that are coming down from the thunderstorms oftentimes. So you have that outflow that's coming out from that squall line. The same exact thing happens in the wintertime when you have the right things coming together here. So typically with traditional snow squalls, unfortunately, they're very, very difficult to forecast for. So you really don't see them coming until they're already beginning to develop. And then you have a very short window of time to actually get that message out that it's happening. So we knew there were going to be snow showers around the area today. We knew that there was going to be some in northeastern Illinois during the morning, and then everything was going to transition over for the most part into northwest Indiana. But once we saw some signs of this cold front moving through and it was generating a little bit more energy to work with, so we had that snow squall moving through, and it really did take a lot of motorists by surprise. And unfortunately, again, it's one of those situations that are really difficult to forecast for, more so than 30 minutes to an hour out.
They did ground delays at O'Hare.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, near zero visibility. You have to at that point. So typically with a snow squall, they last for roughly 30 minutes to 60 minutes. And this morning's, a lot of us were dealing with really heavy snow for about an hour and a half, and then it was still snowing, but it wasn't quite as intense. But many locations picked up a couple inches of snow in a matter of an hour.
Just like that.
And with snow rates like that, the salt trucks can't keep up. Crews can't keep up, no matter how hard they're working to try and stay ahead of it. Those are snow rates that you really can't get out ahead of. So unfortunately, we had a mess this morning.
It really was a mess this morning. And then all of a sudden, midday, it was like, It was beautiful. I mean, still windy.
Still windy, still
but
cold.
if you're just looking at it from the inside, I mean, the sun came out.
Yeah.
There was no snow, but you had already said we wouldn't be finished.
Right, we're not done yet. So if we kind of transition over into Northwest Indiana, that's where a lot of the main focus is going to be here for the rest of today through tonight, and then even into early tomorrow morning, because in Porter County we have a winter weather advisory, and in total, with where some of those heavier bands are going to set up later today, 2 to 5 inches of snow going to be possible. That's not even the big one. Over in LaPorte County, we have a winter storm warning that's remaining in effect. So that's kind of a step worse than a winter weather advisory. The winter storm warning for LaPorte County, that's going to remain in effect until noon tomorrow for as much as 6 to 8 inches of snow in total.
Boy.
But we know the game with lake effect, right? So it's highly localized. The entire county is not going to be blanketed in 6 to 8 inches of snow. It's wherever those most persistent bands set up. We're starting to see those bands developing out there this afternoon, but I think we're really going to see those cranking this evening, tonight, and then tomorrow they should taper off in the morning.
Oh, we certainly hope that they taper off, and I'm sure you'll be on top of, how things are developing throughout the afternoon here and into the evening hours. Okay, so once they taper off tomorrow morning,
I think we're still going to have some snow showers around in Northwest Indiana until about probably mid-morning or so. And then so after 9, 10 o'clock, we're going to begin to dry things out. And then actually the daytime hours of Thursday look fine. It's just going to be your typical cold January day. We're going to have breezy conditions, 26 degrees for your high. Skies are going to be partly cloudy, so we will end up seeing some sunshine tomorrow. But then that 90%, you're probably thinking, okay, when's that hammer going to drop here? That is Thursday evening. So after about 6 p.m. or so, we have a very fast-moving clipper system, which those are very quick-moving, low-pressure systems that come down from Canada. They kind of follow the jet stream. So that one's going to move right across the Great Lakes. So we're going to pick up some snow Thursday evening into Friday, and that's going to bring us an additional inch for most areas. So not a major storm system, but certainly something that is going to be impactful once we get things going mid-evening or so on Thursday. Friday and Saturday, we still have snow chances. We're going to have on and off snow showers possible during the day. And then I did actually add in some flurries.
I was going to say, it's the first I've seen flurries on Sunday.
On Sunday, that's right. So on Sunday, it doesn't look like anything major. I don't think we're going to have any heavy bursts of snow to worry about.
Just enough to freeze out the Rams.
Yes. So that's a good thing. But I think, the bigger weather story for Sunday with that game is it is going to be very cold.
Yeah.
It's going to be the coldest game that the Rams have played. So, maybe it'll work in our favor. We're hoping so. I think kickoff temperatures are likely going to be in the mid-teens. And then wind chill temps are going to be just barely hovering above zero.
But Bears fans have endured that before.
We have. It's been
Not
worse,
Rams
and we can do it
fans.
again.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
course.
As always, we'll see you at 4 o'clock. We'll be right back. Everybody give us 2 minutes, and we'll move forward. All right, everyone, it's about 3:41 right now, and so excited that a Chicago-based philanthropic organization has just been, announcing new grants that they are giving to artists in our area who are doing wonderful work. The name of the organization is United States Artists, and it's the 2026 USA Fellowship. So let me go ahead and bring in United States Artists Program Director Ann Ishii. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Tell me about the grant program, first and foremost, these fellowships that are offered to artists.
Yeah, so USA offers 50 awards of $50,000 each to artists, culture bearers, anybody who's working in any kind of disciplinarity, whether it's music, we have rock stars, we have visual artists, painters, we have writers, architects, basket weavers, and certainly a fair number of representatives from Chicago.
All right, let's go over the three local artists and what they're known to bring to our great city and country.
Yeah, so the legendary musician Ben Lamar Gay, who's really been on a roll this year, doing really incredible work that comes from a lineage of actually Chicago-based movement called the Association of the Advancement of Creative Music that came out from the Black music tradition in 1965. Ben's amazing. Go check him out. Idris Soto, who's a public art artist who does a lot of installation work with sculpture, really beautiful work, who also exhibits local artists herself out of her own backyard, which is really cool. And Sharon Udo, an amazing musician, composer, hymnologist. Really wild time just to see her perform would be, so entertaining.
All of them sound wonderful, and tell me what a fellowship like this can do for an artist.
Yeah, well, our distinction is that the fellowship is completely unrestricted, so artists can do whatever they want with the money. We've heard everything from, I put a down payment on a mortgage to I was able to sort of expand my studio and create more and different kinds of work. And, in one really interesting story, a woman told us that she was finally able to go into family planning with the award. So really, we think artists should do with the money what they know would be best serving their own careers and their personal lives. And it can kind of open up pathways or just give people time to rest.
And all of those things are beneficial in the long run, for sure. Tell me about the state of artists and art right now.
Sure. Yeah, and I think artists, since time immemorial, have always benefited from a little extra support. Times are kind of tough all around, just, in general. And I think artists are a really important part of the conversation around how we can help each other to live in, places that feel better. Quite frankly, we bring a lot of love and beauty into the world. So I think supporting artists is more important than ever, of course, but this has been a longstanding area of need. So, yeah.
And, a former president of your organization said a quote that someone used recently when I was speaking with them, and that is that Chicago is the epicenter for creative activity. Tell me why.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know you guys have a big football game on Sunday, but I like to think of USA as the equivalent of a Bears fan to football, what, we are to the art. So Chicago just really brings in with force. And, you were just saying, like, these are enthusiasts and supporters and stakeholders in the arts who would weather 12-degree outdoor conditions to make sure things get done. So I really kind of commend the Midwest and especially the Chicago region. Its long lineage of really important arts institutions like the Steppenwolf Theater, even things like Second City, and even more recently, sort of small organizations like Comfort Station or Elastic Arts.
If someone is looking to get this fellowship in the future, what do they need to do?
They, benefits knowing the right people. We're a nominations-based process, but our organization does a lot of research into the experts in the field. So get yourself known and make us aware of your work. You can find out more at our website. And yeah, good luck.
Yes, good luck to anyone out there who's putting in the work right now and who could stand to benefit from these fellowships. The awards are $50,000 to 50 artists. That's right?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. On top of which, we also provide subsidies for, things like financial. It's a good amount.
Wonderful. Thank you for what you do. Congratulations to the artists who are receiving these awards this year, and can't wait to see who gets them in the future.
Thank you so much.
All right, you take care. It's about 3:47 right now. Let's take a quick break, and then we're going to get to maybe the cutest conversation of the day. About 3:50 right now, and so happy that we've made it to this conversation here for all of the warmth and the feel goods. We always get excited about the Super Bowl. I mean, obviously we're hoping that the Bears make it there, but one aspect that never changes, always seems to get, regardless of who you're rooting for, interested and feeling good, and that would be the Puppy Bowl. And this year we're going to see two pooches who come from our area. I'm so happy to have Allie Rooney from One Tail at a Time here with me now to talk about the honor, really, of being able to be Chicago's representation for the big game.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Tell me how you all found out that you had been selected to represent or to be represented in the Puppy Bowl this year.
Yeah, we found out via email. We submitted a few different dogs, and lucky two were picked, Susie and Vernon. They're litter mates, their brother and sister, found as strays from Arkansas.
You wouldn't happen to have them near you, would you?
I wouldn't. I'm so sorry.
I had to ask, you know. Wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask. But it is over 150 rescue puppies from 72 shelters that are competing in this competition. I mean, what went through you all's minds when you found out you had been selected?
Oh, we're so excited. Yeah, we've done the Puppy Bowl a few times, and it's always such a great opportunity. We love being able to be there around all the other rescues and shelters. We get to learn about a lot of other rescues and shelters and make friends. So it's a really great experience. It gives us a lot of promotion, which we really like. And it's a good time for the puppies. They're just playing hard and sleeping even harder.
Now, tell us more about Susie and Vernon.
Yeah. Yeah. So they came from Arkansas. It was a litter of 5 puppies. They were already adopted when we submitted them. So for the Puppy Bowl, they need to have, their complete set of vaccines, have a negative fecal, have a lot of different things, be about 4 months of age. So we submitted a few different dogs that had just recently been adopted, and the adopters were so excited to be included. And they're doing great now. So we think they are maybe like a hound lab mix. We will get their DNA test back after the Puppy Bowl, but they're about 45 or 50 pounds now. And when we brought them out to New York, they were only like 15 pounds. So they've grown a lot. Yeah.
And I probably read the most heartwarming part of this story. They were adopted by people who live close to each other, and so they still get to play.
Yeah, it's so cute. So that's just a total coincidence. The adopters didn't know one another beforehand, but they are just 3 blocks from each other. So they attended the same puppy training class, and they get to see each other for play dates, and the adopters have become good friends. So it's really sweet.
Oh my goodness. I absolutely love this so much. Tell me more about One Tail at a Time.
Sure, yeah. One Tail at a Time is a Chicago-based, foster-based rescue. We have 2 locations. We have a adoption center in Bucktown and an adoption center in the South Loop inside of a PetSmart. So any day of the week, the PetSmart location is open. You can come on down and see adoptable dogs and cats. And then Wednesday through Sunday, we have adoptable dogs at our Bucktown location. And then everyone else is living in a loving foster home. So if anyone is interested in fostering, if opening up your home to a pet in need is of interest to you, go over to onetail.org and check us out.
Now, if people don't know when to check out the Puppy Bowl, do you already have the date and we know the date, but the time, where we need to be tuned in?
Yes, so February 8th, it's going to be on at 1 p.m. We are actually going to be having a viewing party at Babe's Sports Bar. So if anyone is interested, come on over to Babe's Sports Bar. They're in Logan Square. We will have the 2 star puppies there, as well as a lot of cute adoptable puppies too. So it'll be a really good time. 1 p.m. on Sunday.
1 p.m. on Super Bowl Sunday, and you've turned it into a whole viewing party that people can go and check the whole thing out. But then it also supports your greater mission, and that's whether people adopt or I would assume there's probably a charge for entry.
Yeah, we're doing a donation-based entry, so anyone can donate any amount. We're going to have Venmo, accepting cash as well, and Square payments, so any method of donating is wonderful. And we'll also have some merch and some cocktails that will have a give back to us from Babe, so a lot of different ways that'll help support One Tail at a Time and help support rescuing more pets in need.
Well, this is super cool. Congratulations again on being back in the Puppy Bowl. You all are all stars,
Yeah, we're Puppy Bowl alumni. Yeah.
Is there anything that says, this time of year that's that kind of weighs on you all?
Oh, I mean, I think this time of year, everyone gets those winter blues. I think it can be tough. I think puppies just bring a lot of joy to a lot of people. So February for us is always about puppies. We do puppy grams where we will deliver puppies to your workplace or to your home. We have Valentine's Day e-cards. There's a lot of different things to just bring a little bit of joy, boost a little bit of happiness. for these winter months.
We could all use a little boost of joy and happiness.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you've got to get your heart checked if a puppy can't do that for you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Great talking to you, Allie. And goodness, I can't wait to see who wins the Puppy Bowl.
Yeah, tune in.
All right, take care.
Bye, thank you.
We're going to take a 2-minute break, everybody. We'll be back to close things out. All right, everybody, almost out of here. And before we go, just so you know, another email that I just got before we went to our last guest, calling all Calebs. The Wiener Circle is getting ready to have a Caleb Williams lookalike contest next week, January 20th at 6 p.m. Cannot wait to see it and talk about it next week. And of course, we've got to get through this divisional round matchup on Sunday. But regardless, we'll have something to celebrate when we see all of those Calebs come together at the Wiener Circle next week. We'll see you back here tomorrow from 1 to 4 p.m., everybody. Take care.
Live from Chicago, this is Fox 32 News at 4.
Right now, a foreign effort to boost tourism could push Chicago's hotel tax to the top in the U.S. We'll explain what this proposal means for you.
Another iconic